I first went to Warhammer World about 4 years ago. At the time I was working in Nottingham covering the Mayhem Film Festival, so in the daytime I had hours to kill. So I thought for old time's sake, for nostalgia's sake, I would go back and visit the HQ of Warhammer, something that really meant a lot to me as a kid, and go and check it out, take my camera, film an episode and put something together for Slimehouse TV. Now this was in the real early days of the channel. I didn't really know what I was doing. I just had my camera, filmed some stuff and put it together into like a little vloggy episode. But still to this day it's one of my most popular uploads on this channel. So I thought it would be cool for 2022 on my birthday to go back and visit Warhammer World, because when I first went I wasn't that into it. I was literally going for like old times nostalgia's sake. But these days I'm back into Warhammer. I love it again. So it would be cool to go back now as a lover of Warhammer who actually enjoys collecting it and painting it again, to go and check it out and see what's changed in that 4 years since I filmed that episode. So myself, Rox and Luke all got together nice and early, headed over to Nottingham, and here's how we got on. So we arrived nice and early, as you do, and it was still really busy, even though we got there like just as it was opening. And straight away, you see the giant rhino, which is not 1.1 scale. When I went before, I said it was a 1.1 scale rhino. It's actually not, and it makes sense because Space Marines are like 10, 11 foot tall, and you've got to fit like 20 of those things inside this rhino. So looking at it now, I can see that it's not 1.1 scale, but it's definitely human scale. They've also got the giant bronze statue of a Space Marine, which is awesome, and the big Warhammer World sign. You can't miss this place. When you're driving towards it, you see it from quite a while away. And already I'm getting them excited vibes. I can't wait to get inside and see what's changed. So we stopped for some breakfast at the Bugman's Bar, had a nice full vegetarian English, and then went to check out the gaming hall quick. What I really like about this place is that you can go, not check out the exhibition, and just play Warhammer. You don't have to pay or anything like that. You just call them up, book the table, and they've got these wicked massive tables where you can bring your own army and play games on it. And there's really cool terrain and structures and buildings, the kind of thing that you're only going to get to play on if you build it yourself or if you actually go to Warhammer World. Now I knew that there were lots of stuff that I wanted to cover in the exhibition, so I didn't spend too long in that area. We paid the money to get into the exhibition. It's about £8.50 or something like that. Headed straight in, and room 1 is the fantasy room. So when I say fantasy, I'm talking about the Warhammer that's the Age of Sigmar side of stuff. Swords, shields, crossbows, bow and arrows, all that medieval style fantasy stuff. And this room's full of it. Straight away they've got a bunch of old hammer, which you know I'm a big fan of if you watch this channel. I actually love the old hammer stuff more than the new stuff, so it's wicked that they've got a bit displayed there. Literally my only gripe about this place is that there's not enough old hammer. I feel like in this day and age it would be really good to have a whole bigger section that's just all the old Warhammer that you can't buy anymore. I would love to see more of that. I think in this day and age it would do really well to have a whole section that's just all that old stuff, but that's just my personal opinion. One of the other things that you see when you first walk into this room is like a giant vivarium-sized diorama of hundreds of Nighthaunt swarming these Stormcast. It reminds me of that scene from Lord of the Rings Return of the King when all those dead ghost kings take the Oliphant. It's awesome. Speaking of Lord of the Rings, there's a ton of that stuff in there as well, loads of those models and a big set of all these orcs taking a village. I don't know the name of the actual village. I'm sure somebody watching this will know a lot better than I do, but it's also really awesome to see. There was another diorama that I don't remember seeing last time, so I'm pretty sure that this is a new one, and it's a giant castle just pure full of undead. And this is not a scene like a war scene that they're fighting anyone, it's almost like they're getting ready for battle. There's podiums with thousands of skulls on them, there's a corner that you can look into and it must have got 1 million dead skeletons piled up. It proper reminds me of some Doom vibes. There's giant gateways that are made of skulls. This whole thing is just pure undead, like a look into their lives and their fortress. And if you're a player of undead in Warhammer, this must be like the coolest thing you've ever seen. And there's so many little elements inside the castle that are made of skeletons and bones, even the staircases. Another diorama that I don't remember seeing last time I went is this giant war that's took place inside what looks like a valley. There's a huge titan ribcage fossilized into the side of the rock, and then in the face of the rock there's a big moon orc symbol carved into it like Mount Rushmore. And you've got orcs and giants and trolls and stormcast all going at it like a big royal rumble. One of my favourite details was this giant that stamped a horse dead and then using his chariot like a war mace. There's this portal that's fused into the side of the rock that's spilling out reinforcements, and like all these dioramas, every little intricate part of it there's something going on, and you can spend hours looking at each individual little piece and just pick up all the little stories that are going on within it. Then we move on to what is probably my favourite diorama in the whole of Warhammer world, the giant Nurgle display. And this thing is insane. There's thousands of small, big, different types of Nurgle creatures all pouring out of every single orifice of the castle, all infected, looking like they're off to proper ruin someone's life. I also love how even the castle looks like it's infected with these giant teeth growing out of the door arches and slime and ooze creeping out of all the little bits of brickwork. And I love Nurgle, so I might be a little bit biased, but I feel like out of all of the dioramas, this one especially has got so much going on, so many little intricate details. I could spend hours filming it. Every time I look at this thing, I discover something new. And we did look at this last time I was there. This is one that I've definitely revisited from the first video, but it still just blows my mind how awesome it is. I always love things that are like gross out and zombified and infected, and this is like the perfect example of that in the Warhammer world. But this whole room is so impressive. Each one of these rooms, like I said, is so overwhelming. It's so hard to try and cover everything. You really can't take it in one visit. And yeah, I'm trying to cover this whole place so that I can show people that can't make it to Warhammer World, people in other countries, people that aren't able to go for whatever reason. But at the same time, I don't want to film every single little piece and every detail because I want people to actually go and see it for themselves. So room 2 is when we move on to the 40k stuff. Like I said, room 1 is all fantasy, Age of Sigmar stuff. Warhammer is basically split into 2 different factions. There's lots of other little bits and bats going on, but you've primarily got Age of Sigmar, which is swords and shields and crossbows, bow and arrows, that kind of thing. And then you've got 40k, which is when we get to chainswords, bolter pistols, rifles, cannons, flamethrowers, all that stuff. So you've got armies like Space Marines, and this room has got some awesome Space Marine dioramas. Like the one with the deathguard versus Dark Angels. Now deathguard are like the futuristic version of Nurgle that we just spoke about a minute ago. Lots of zombified, rotten, infected people and that kind of thing, and these are like my favourite 40k army. So you've got a whole army of them storming this Dark Angels facility. And there's so many cool details in this. You've got these dropships firing missiles, and the missiles are actually sculpted in mid-range. You've got a conveyor belt monorail transporting shipping containers. And the Death Guard again look like this giant swarm of puke that's just taking over the Dark Angels facility. It's so cool. There's also this wicked display of Tyranids versus Space Wolves in this whole snow biome, and this is such a perfect example of how these teams put these dioramas together and capture such crazy action in one little freeze-framed moment. There's hundreds of these Tyranids swarming the base, overtaking the exits and the entrances. You've got vehicles spilling out Space Wolves that are trying to cut them off halfway. It's like a scene from Starship Troopers with all these Hormagaunts piling on top of each other trying to push the Space Wolves back. They're just coming from every direction. They're even breaking out of the floor. And like I said, it's such a perfect example of a scene that's completely still, but with so much action going on in these little individual moments, it just feels like the whole thing is moving. But to be honest, that same thing can be said for all of these dioramas. So as much as I love seeing these little individual characters painted and stuff like that, when you take a step back and you appreciate this thing in its entirety, that's what I love about coming here. That's what makes me want to keep coming back. Now, room 3 we've talked about before, but you can't really come to Warhammer World without talking about it. I covered it a lot in that first video, and lots of other people have covered it before. But it's the gigantic khorn versus Ultramarines battle scene. This is a scene that's so big that it needs a staircase around it to see it properly. This thing takes over the entire room. This diorama is without doubt the biggest Warhammer display on the face of the earth. There's no other diorama that could possibly match how epic in scale this one is. Every single little inch of this thing has got something going on. The amount of detail that they cram into every single square foot of this thing is absolutely mind-blowing. And whatever I said about the other dioramas in terms of scale and scope and the crazy stories that are all going on within a single moment, this one just dials that up to 1,000. Literally everywhere you look, every single nook and cranny, there's something crazy going on. This thing is like pure imagination run wild. If you're someone who likes to create Warhammer, paint Warhammer and create dioramas, if you was part of the team that got to put this together, you must have been completely in your element. I don't know what kind of budget restraints they had or if there was any limitations at all, but if you got asked to work on this thing, it must have been a dream come true. It completely fries my brain just trying to contemplate how they even went about planning the creation of this diorama. Like how they even started trying to construct this thing, how they glued stuff down without knocking other things over. It must have been something that they had to constantly, meticulously think about every single inch of it. And thinking about all that stuff just makes this thing like 1,000,000 times more impressive to me. Like, if you've watched any of my Warhammer painting videos, you'll know how long it takes just to paint one figure. Just trying to get one model to stay in the position that you want it to while you're gluing it is like such a chore, and this thing has like 1,000,000 figures on it. There's jump pack marines and speeders flying around the outside of the building that have all been glued in position perfectly. There's greater demons with defiler legs that are half demon, half cybernetic, clambering up the side of the destroyed walls with thousands of bloodletters swarming in around them. There's tons of khorn berserkers and cultists and traitors all piling forward on the Ultramarines with helldrakes flying over and burning everything on the ground below. With fire actually sculpted blazing out of their mouths, burning all the Ultramarines beneath them. And then pushing them back are convoys of rhinos and titans and sentry guns and dreadnoughts. Thousands and thousands of pounds worth of models all in one big gigantic diorama. Two super gigantic and iconic armies both locked in combat in what is, like I said, got to be the most impressive Warhammer diorama on the face of the earth. There's also signs up letting you know that apparently there's a few specific models that are hidden amongst the diorama, and if you spot one of them and take a photo and take it to the desk, they will give you that model for free, and Rox and Luke spent like 45 minutes before they gave up looking, but apparently they are there. I would love to know if anybody watching this has ever got one of those models. Please let me know in the comments below, because like I said, they spent like 45 minutes looking and didn't see anything. Room 4 is another 40k room. It concentrates a lot more on Eldar and Kata-chan and orcs and Tau and that kind of thing. I filmed a lot of these when I came the first time, but it was still really nice to come back, revisit them and film them in a bit more depth. What I find when you come here is it kind of messes with your senses a little bit, because there's these giant dioramas, but then there's so much little tiny intricate details going on. So you have to really dial in your senses. So you go really close to the cabinets and you're looking at all the little individual models and appreciating them like that for their little individual pieces. And then you take a step back and you look at it in its entirety, and it kind of like messes with your head. There's so much going on. It's like an assault on your senses. You really have to concentrate and kind of blur out everything else to really appreciate what's going on inside the cabinet. And when I do that, I almost kind of get lost in them. And it's kind of like having to dial in two separate sides of your brain, so you get close and you look at all the little tiny models and then you take a step back, and it's almost like appreciating the same piece of artwork twice. Like I said, this place is so overwhelming and there's so much to take in when you get in here, and even though we spent a few hours in it and this is the second time I've been there, I still feel like I barely scratched the surface. All I want to do when I come out is go back in and look at everything again. The cool thing about that though is that if you do buy a ticket, you can go in as many times as you want in that one day, so you could effectively go there from open till close and just spend as much as you want in these exhibitions looking at everything. I just always feel that I haven't ever covered it properly, and that no matter how much time I spend there, there's still so much more to see, but then that also gives me so many more reasons to keep going back there. Room 4 is the last room of the exhibition, so when you exit it, you exit into the shop. And when I first came to Warhammer, like I said at the start of this video, it's not something that I was like really into at the time, but I soon got back into it after coming away feeling so inspired from Warhammer World on that first visit, and since then like it completely ignited my passion for it. So I couldn't leave without buying myself a model, so on this particular visit, I went for the Ambots from Necromunda. I used to love the old Amble creature, so a pair of new designed mechanical versions of that monster were like a no-brainer to me. Rock's got herself a Necron Illumina, so we've been putting them together, and she also got me, because it was my birthday, a giant, really cool Space Marine mug. Now, I don't drink tea, I don't drink hot drinks or anything like that, but I do eat a lot of ramen, so that is now my new perfect ramen bowl. So overall, it was just a fantastic day, and very much like the first time, like I said, I came home completely inspired, couldn't wait to get on painting my Ambots, and Roxy started putting together her Illumina and that kind of thing, and we just had a great time, and I can't wait to go back. If you've been following Slimehouse for a while, I suppose you've kind of been following my Warhammer journey getting back into it. As I said, I was really into it as a kid, and then as I got older I didn't really think too much about it, but going to Warhammer World 4 years ago ignited my passion for it again, and since then, on and off, I've been really into Warhammer. I don't get a chance to do it as much as I would like to. My friend Luke, who took us, runs a Warhammer gaming day, so I go there and I film what they've got going on, and I do want to play it at some point and get into it properly. I've not had a chance to put together an army. It takes me long enough to paint one, and like I said, if you've seen my videos, you know how long that takes me. But there's a bunch of other Warhammer stuff on this channel if you want to go back and binge the back catalogue, and that video from 4 years ago, although it's filmed very amateur by the quality of the stuff that I do now, I think it would be really cool to go back for you to see that. And like I said, it's one of my most popular videos on the channel, so people really like that, and maybe you'll like it too. And hopefully between that video and this one, I've inspired you to go check out Warhammer World as well, because even if you're not into the models, like, you can still go and appreciate these giant dioramas and the sets that they've built, and there's no way that you can kind of leave without feeling like you want to buy one and paint it yourself, even if it's just one individual model. But I do hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did like it, don't forget to give it a like, and let me know in the comments below if you've been to Warhammer World, if you've ever painted Warhammer, what your favourite army is, or if you found that little individual models that they're hidden in room 3, because we didn't have a prayer, but apparently some people have definitely found them. Like I said, I've got a bunch of stuff on here, not just Warhammer, lots of other cool stuff, so don't forget to go back and binge the back catalogue. I'm also on Instagram at Theo_Kane_Slimehouse. I put a bunch of exclusive photos up there, Warhammer retro action figures, all that kind of stuff, all that Slimehouse stuff that we've got going on this channel, and lots of stuff that I don't post on YouTube goes onto the Instagram, so don't forget to add me on there if you've got Instagram as well. You can also support this channel on Patreon over at patreon.com/SlimehouseTV, and for as little as $1 a month, or a bit more if you're feeling a little bit more generous, and you can help put money back into Slimehouse and help me make this channel bigger and better than ever. In the meantime, like I said, I really hope you enjoyed our 2022 coverage of Warhammer World. I'm Theo Kane. I will catch you in the next video, but until then, I'm gone. Bye!